every aspect of their lives. He dictates how they dress, how they interact with clients, everything.
It's just total control.
Total control. There's this one scene that's really disturbing.
Okay.
Where a white man is cheering on one of his women, party time, as she endures a violent sexual act.
Oh.
And the white man's words are just shocking.
Yeah.
Welcome to Witter. Who Has Time to Read? The podcast that brings deep dives for busy minds. Listen to AI hosts Jane and Dane and get ready to unpack the world's most captivating books in just a fraction of the time. Whether commuting, working out, or just squeezing in a quick break, we deliver key insights, thought-provoking themes, and takeaways you can carry into your day. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and leave a comment. Plus, use our links in the description to purchase this book. Your support helps us bring more engaging book discussions to you. Listen and follow us wherever you get your podcasts. Who has time to read? You do, with Witter.
Welcome to Witter. You know, for all those busy minds out there needing a deep dive, and to kick off Black History Month, we thought we'd do something a little intense.
Mm-hmm.
This is part of our Black Voices series, and we're diving into Iceberg Slim's Pimp, The Story of My Life.
Woo!
Quite the title.
It is.
And, you know, we always try to find insightful books for our deep dives.
Absolutely.
But this one, even Dave Chappelle himself called out as insightful.
Wow, yeah. And, you know, it's interesting you mentioned Dave Chappelle because he had a Netflix special, The Bird Revelation.
Right.
And he specifically pointed to Pimp.
Wow.
For its raw take on capitalism.
Interesting.
He said, and I quote, "In Pimp, Iceberg Slim breaks down some of the coldest capitalist concepts I've ever heard in my life."
Okay, so high praise from Chappelle.
Right.
And that definitely piques my interest.
For sure.
But you're right, this book is not your typical biography.
No.
It's gritty. It's an unflinching look at a side of Black life that's rarely depicted.
Very real.
But before we get into all that heavy stuff, let's rewind all the way back to Slim's childhood.
Okay.
Because it's not what you'd expect given the book's title.
Right. Definitely not what you'd expect. He grew up in Rockford, Illinois.
Okay.
And actually had a pretty stable start, believe it or not.
Really?
Yeah. His stepfather, Henry, was a genuinely kind man.
Wow.
Who doted on Slim's mother.
Okay.
He provided her with a nice car, fashionable clothes, you name it.
Sounds pretty good.
They were living the good life.
Yeah.
At least for a time.
At least for a time.
Yeah.
And I think that contrast is so important.
I agree.
Because it really highlights how impactful that eventual betrayal was for young Slim.
Yeah.
There's this scene in the book, it's so powerful.
Yeah.
Where he's clinging to Henry, like terrified that his mother might leave.
Right.
He senses that instability even as a kid.
Mm-hmm.
And tragically, his fears come true.
They do. And that's where the real turning point happens. His mother abandons Henry for a hustler named Steve.
Oh, wow.
Imagine coming home to find your house completely empty, everything gone.
Oh, my gosh.
Slim describes this in such vivid detail.
Yeah.
And you can practically feel the shock and emotional trauma he experienced.
I mean, that would be devastating.
Absolutely.
At any age.
Right.
Okay, so we've got this foundation of abandonment.
Yeah.
This feeling of vulnerability that really seems to stick with Slim.
It really does.
How does that connect to the capitalist concepts Chappelle was talking about?
That's a great question.
We're still a long way from the world of pimping at this point.
You're right. But what's fascinating is that even Slim's early hustles show a cunning that foreshadows his later choices.
Okay, interesting.
Take the Murphy game, for instance.
Okay, the Murphy game.
Yeah, he would dress as a woman to lure men into a robbery.
Wait a minute. He's wearing a dress as a decoy?
A dress as a decoy.
That's crazy.
I know, right? It speaks volumes about his willingness to manipulate and exploit, even at a young age.
Okay, so hold on. The Murphy game. For those of us who aren't familiar with pimp slang,
right.
What exactly does that entail?
Good point. The Murphy game was basically a street con.
Oh, okay.
Slim and his accomplice would target men looking for a good time.
Uh-huh.
He'd dress up as a woman to entice them.
Oh, wow.
And then his partner would jump in, posing as an outraged husband or boyfriend.
I see.
They'd rob the unsuspecting victim using fear and confusion to their advantage.
Wow. So even before embracing the pimp life, he's already developing these manipulative tactics.
Yes.
This understanding of power dynamics.
Precisely. And it's not just street cons either.
Oh, really?
Slim even tries to go to college for a bit.
What?
But you can almost feel these hustling instincts bubbling under the surface.
He just can't escape it, can he?
It seems not. He can't escape this pull towards the streets, towards a world where he feels he can make his own rules.
So college doesn't stick.
Nope.
And eventually, his hustling leads to jail time.
Sadly, yes.
I imagine that experience only reinforced the worldview he was developing.
Unfortunately, yes. Jail becomes a harsh lesson in survival.
Yeah.
Further solidifying his belief that the system is rigged against him.
Right.
He comes out even more determined to carve his own path.
Wow.
Even if it means operating outside the law.
And this brings us to the heart of Pimp, right?
Exactly.
This is where Macking Youngblood, this vulnerable kid shaped by betrayal, fully transforms into the hardened Iceberg Slim we know from the book.
That's right. And as we delve into his pimping years, we'll see those capitalist concepts come into sharp focus.
Oh, I bet.
It's a world where exploitation and manipulation become tools for survival,
right.
A way to gain power and control in a society that has denied him access to traditional forms of success.
It's interesting because even though Slim reconciles with his mother later in life, visiting her grays and acknowledging her own vulnerabilities,
right.
It seems like that initial wound, that sense of abandonment, never truly leaves him.
That's a keen observation, and I think it speaks to the lasting impact of early trauma. Even as Slim builds his empire,
right.
There's a part of him that remains that scared kid, clinging to anyone who offers a semblance of stability and affection, even if it's twisted and ultimately harmful.
So we've got this complex foundation, this fascinating backstory that leads us right to the edge of Slim's entry into the world of pimping.
We do.
But before we go any further, I have to ask.
Okay.
What were your initial reactions to this part of the book?
You know, what struck me was the stark contrast between Slim's loving stepfather and the harsh realities he eventually faces.
Yeah.
It really highlights the complexities of his journey. What about you?
Honestly, that image of him as a young boy, clinging to Henry, really stuck with me.
Yeah.
Knowing how things unfold later, it's almost like a foreshadowing of that deep need for control.
Absolutely.
That desire to never be in a position of vulnerability again.
Right.
But that's a conversation for the next part of our deep dive.
It is.
We'll be back soon to explore the brutal realities of Slim's pimping years and really unpack those coldest capitalist concepts that Dave Chappelle was talking about.
Stay tuned, listeners.
The story only gets more intense from here.
Yeah.
Welcome back to Witter, where we're deep diving into a world few dare to explore.
That's right.
We're continuing our journey through Iceberg Slim's Pimp.
Yes.
And let me tell you, this is where things get really intense.
Intense is an understatement. I mean, we're not just reading a story here. Right. We're peeling back layers of a system, exposing its raw underbelly.
Okay, so let's break this down. Slim isn't just participating in this world.
No.
He's dissecting it.
Right.
He lays out the rules, the language, the power dynamics, and it's not pretty.
It's not.
It's brutal, manipulative,
yes,
and honestly, pretty disturbing.
And this is where Slim's intelligence really shines through. He's a master observer, constantly analyzing and strategizing.
Yeah.
He even says a pimp is happy when his whores giggle. He knows they're still asleep.
Wow, that's chilling.
Right.
It really highlights the emotional manipulation at the core of this world.
Yes.
He wants his women dependent, seeing him as their savior.
Right.
Even as he profits from their exploitation.
Precisely. And this control extends to every aspect of their lives. He dictates how they dress, how they interact with clients, everything.
It's just total control.
Total control. There's this one scene that's really disturbing.
Okay.
Where a white man is cheering on one of his women, party time, as she endures a violent sexual act.
Oh.
And the white man's words are just shocking.
Yeah. What does he say?
He urges her to be hurt.
Wow.
Punished.
It's like he's watching a spectacle.
It is.
Totally detached from the humanity of the woman in front of him.
Yeah, it adds this whole other layer to the exploitation.
Right.
It's not just black women being exploited by black men.
Right.
It's their bodies being fetishized and objectified by white men as well.
That's a crucial point, and it speaks to the intersection of race, power, and capitalism that Slim is grappling with throughout the book.
It really does.
He even observes that most black people will never experience the earthly heaven of the white suburbs.
Right.
Highlighting the systemic inequalities that limit their opportunities.
Yeah, so in a way, Slim's pimping becomes a twisted form of entrepreneurship.
That's a good way to put it.
It's a way to achieve financial success that's otherwise unattainable given the limited options he sees for himself. as a black man in America.
Right, and this is where things get really thought-provoking.
They do.
It forces us to question where we draw the line between legitimate and illegitimate capitalism.
Exactly.
Are Slim's methods really that different from corporations that exploit workers for profit?
It's a tough question, right?
It is.
Because on one hand, his actions are clearly harmful, exploitative.
Of course.
But on the other hand, he's operating within a system that's already rigged against him.
Okay, so we've got this brutal reality of the game, these systemic forces at play. But the book also dives into Slim's personal relationships.
Yes, it does.
And these relationships, I think, are what really add depth and complexity to his character.
I agree. His relationship with Pepper.
Yeah.
The experienced ex-whore who becomes his mentor and lover is a perfect example.
Yeah, Pepper.
She teaches him the tricks of the trade.
Right.
But she also exploits him, pulling him deeper into this world.
It's just a vicious cycle of manipulation and control.
It is. And then there's Weeping Shorty, the aging drug-addicted pimp.
Right, being short.
He's like a cautionary tale showing the potential downfall of this lifestyle.
Oh, right.
But even in his vulnerability, he offers Slim advice.
Right.
A glimpse into the humanity that still flickers beneath the surface.
Yeah, and we can't forget Sweet Jones.
Oh, yeah, Sweet Jones.
The legendary pimp that Slim idolizes.
Yeah, Sweet Jones embodies the ultimate success in this world, but even his story is a cautionary tale.
Interesting.
His ruthlessness and violence ultimately lead to his downfall.
It's almost Shakespearean the way these characters play out their roles in Slim's life.
I know, right?
Their mentors, competitors, warnings, all shaping his path.
Pushing him further down this dark road.
And what's so fascinating is that despite the harsh realities, Slim does have moments of introspection.
He does.
He grapples with his own morality.
Yes.
Expresses a yearning for something more.
Right. There's even this one scene where he has an epiphany.
Oh, really?
About the earthly heaven of the white suburbs.
Oh, yeah, that scene.
Realizing that it's a world that's largely inaccessible to black people like him.
You know, that scene really stuck with me.
Yeah.
Because it shows that Slim isn't just a ruthless exploiter.
Right.
He's a complex individual wrestling with his own demons.
Absolutely.
His own awareness of the systemic barriers that hold him back.
And that's what makes Pimp such a compelling read.
I agree.
It's not just a voyeuristic glimpse into a seedy underworld.
Yeah.
It's a nuanced exploration of human nature, ambition, and the choices we make when faced with limited options.
So as we head into the final part of our deep dive, I want to ask you this.
Okay.
What do you think Slim's story ultimately says about the American dream?
Ooh, that's the million-dollar question, isn't it?
It is.
And honestly, Pimp doesn't offer easy answers.
I agree.
But it definitely forces us to confront uncomfortable truths about ourselves, our society, and the systems that shape our lives. But we'll delve deeper into that in the next part of our deep dive.
Stay with us, listeners. We've got a lot more to unpack.
We do.
Trust me, it's worth the ride. Welcome back to Witter Deep Divers. We're wrapping up our journey through Iceberg Slim's Pimp.
It has been quite the journey.
And as promised, we're going even deeper into those thought-provoking questions we left you with.
Yeah, it's been a roller coaster, hasn't it? From Slim's tumultuous childhood to the heights of his pimping career.
Yeah.
This book does not shy away from the brutal realities of the game.
No, it doesn't.
But as we head towards the end, it's Slim's internal struggles that really grabbed my attention.
You know, that's what struck me too.
Yeah.
It'd be easy to just label Slim as a villain.
Right.
And call it a day.
Yeah.
But that's not what Iceberg Slim gives us.
No.
We see his ambition, his intelligence, his moments of doubt, even regret.
Yeah, you really start to question, are his choices solely driven by greed?
Right.
Or is there something more complex at play?
I think so.
Remember how he idolizes Sweet Jones?
Yeah, Sweet Jones.
That legendary ruthless pimp?
Right.
Slim sees him as the pinnacle of success in this world.
Yeah, he really looks up to him.
But as Sweet Jones' story unfolds, it becomes a cautionary tale. His violence and ruthlessness catch up to him, ultimately leading to his downfall. It's like a warning sign for Slim.
Right.
Right in front of him.
And it's not just Sweet Jones. Slim himself faces betrayals, violence, even imprisonment. Each setback chips away at him, hardening him, making him more cynical. He even pushes away his mother, the one constant in his life, all for the sake of this game.
It's a vicious cycle. The more he achieves, the more he loses. And yet he can't seem to escape. He's addicted to the power that controls the money. But those fleeting highs come at a steep cost. His relationships, his humanity, maybe even his soul.
It's like he's trapped in this self-made prison.
Yeah.
Remember that scene?
Which one?
Where he drives through a wealthy white suburb.
Oh, yeah.
And has this realization that this earthly heaven is unattainable for most black people like him.
Yeah.
It's heartbreaking because he sees the limitations, the systemic barriers, but he doesn't see a way out.
That's the tragedy of Slim's story, right?
I think so.
He's intelligent, resourceful, even introspective, but he's ultimately confined by the choices he's made by the world he's chosen to operate in.
And those choices have consequences.
Yeah.
He battles with addiction, finding temporary solace in cocaine and heroin, but ultimately succumbing to their destructive grip. Those scenes where he describes withdrawal.
Oh, yeah.
They're raw, visceral. You can almost feel the agony, the desperation.
Yeah. It's a reminder that even those who appear strong and in control are often fighting inner battles, demons that threaten to consume them. And Slim, despite his outward success, is not immune to that struggle.
So as the book winds down, you see Slim reflecting on his life, acknowledging the pain he's caused, even expressing regret. He's achieved a level of success, but it's a hollow victory. He's lost his family, his friends, his connection to his own humanity.
It all circles back to that question we posed earlier about the American dream. Slim's story suggests that for some it's a mirage, a promise that's forever out of reach. The system is rigged, and for those born on the margins, the path to success is often paved with compromise and exploitation.
Pimp is a harsh critique of that system, of the illusion of the American dream. It forces us to confront uncomfortable truths about ambition, survival, and the cost of chasing success in a world that's already stacked against you.
But I think it's also important to remember that Pimp is a testament to Black resilience. Slim's story, however flawed, is a story of survival against all odds. It's a voice rarely heard, a perspective often silenced.
It's a book that deserves to be read, discussed, and debated. It's not a glorification of pimping. It's a raw, unflinching look at a life shaped by trauma, ambition, and a system that perpetuates inequality. And it's a book that will stay with you long after you finish it.
So as we close out this deep dive, we want to leave you with this.
What did you take away from Slim's story?
What resonated with you? What will you be thinking about long after this episode ends? Because ultimately, that's the power of Iceberg Slim's Pimp.
It's a story that challenges our assumptions, sparks our curiosity, and leaves us grappling with questions about ourselves and the world we inhabit. And that's what Witter is all about, giving you deep dives into complex topics.
That make you think.
That make you feel and engage with the world in a more meaningful way. So keep those minds busy.
And those brains engaged.
We'll see you on our next deep dive.
Until then,
stay curious.
Stay informed.
And keep exploring.
Thanks for listening to Witter, Who Has Time to Read, produced by One Media. Please support the author by purchasing the book or audiobook using the link in the description. It's a great way to help keep the art of writing alive. And stay in the loop. Subscribe to our newsletter for updates on weekly deep dives. And don't forget to share your thoughts or suggest our next deep dive at witterpodcast@gmail.com.